The name tag is sticky on the back and crooked on the front, and it says Miss Jody in purple marker. Because that's the naming convention at Bright Sparks Academy. Every adult in the building is Miss or Mr. followed by a first name, because the children are between 2 and 5 years old, and they don't know last names, and they don't know titles, and they don't know the difference between a CEO and a janitor, which is exactly the point. Her real name is Jody Emerson Park. She is 46 years old. She is the founder and CEO of Bright Sparks Early Learning, a daycare and preschool chain that operates 29 locations across 6 states, employs 1,800 people, and generates $190 million in annual revenue. The company motto, printed on every wall, every brochure, every parent welcome packet, is "Every child seen, every child safe, every child fed." Asterisk. The motto was Jody's mother's motto first. Her mother, B, ran an in-home daycare in Decatur, Georgia, for 31 years. 6 children at a time, in the living room of a house on Candler Road that had been in the family since 1962. B didn't have a license for the first 8 years. She just watched the neighbors' kids while the neighbors worked, the way women in the neighborhood had always done, the informal economy of care that runs beneath the formal economy of everything else. She charged $30 a week per child, which even in 1986 was barely enough to cover the food, and the food was always the priority. B made breakfast and lunch for every child every day. Scrambled eggs and toast in the morning, soup and sandwiches at noon, a snack at 3, crackers and peanut butter, apple slices, the kind of food that costs almost nothing and means almost everything to a child who might not eat again until tomorrow morning. You can teach a child letters and numbers, B used to say, but you can't teach a hungry child anything. A hungry child isn't learning. A hungry child is surviving. B died at 73. Jody was 32. She took the $30 a week daycare and the scrambled eggs and the motto, and she built Bright Sparks. First 1 location in Atlanta, then 3, then 12, then 29. The growth fueled by the specific insight that early childhood care in America is simultaneously the most important service and the least funded one, that the people who care for children during the most critical years of brain development are paid less than the people who park cars at the airport, and that the market gap between what parents need and what they can afford is the space in which a company can either exploit families or serve them. Jody chose to serve. The tuition at Bright Sparks is tiered, sliding scale based on income, subsidized by corporate contracts and state vouchers, and the particular financial architecture that allows a company to charge some families full price so that other families can pay less. The model works. The margins are tight, not startup tight, but the structural tightness of a business that has chosen service over maximum extraction and that operates in the narrow corridor between sustainability and generosity. But something is wrong with the corridor. The employee satisfaction survey came back 6 weeks ago. Teacher satisfaction, 31%. Aide satisfaction, 24%. Turnover in the last 12 months, 47%. Nearly half the staff is leaving every year. The exit interviews say what exit interviews always say in early childhood education. The pay isn't enough. The hours are too long. The ratios are too high. The resources are too thin. And the love that brought them into the profession is being ground down by the economics that define it. Jody read the survey on a Tuesday night in her office on the 14th floor of the Bright Sparks corporate headquarters in Midtown Atlanta. She read it twice. She closed her laptop. She opened it. She called her VP of Operations, a woman named Tessa Harlow, who had been a center director for 11 years before joining corporate and who retained the center director's ability to deliver reality without euphemism. "The teachers are leaving because the teachers are broke," Tessa said. "They love the kids. They love the work. They don't love making $14 an hour while the parents they serve make 6 figures. They don't love buying classroom supplies with their own money because the supply budget was cut in Q3. They don't love the fact that we market ourselves as the best daycare in every city we're in, and we pay our teachers like they work at a gas station. What do I need to see? Everything. Go to a center, not as the CEO, as an aide. Work the toddler room, change diapers, serve lunch, do circle time, stay until close, See what the building looks like at 5:30 when the last parent is late and the teacher is still there and the teacher hasn't eaten since 7 a.m. because there's no break and no coverage and no time. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this is the story of a CEO who built a daycare empire on her mother's motto, and then walked into one of her own centers to discover that the motto was breaking the people who lived it. Monday, 6:45 a.m. Jody walks through the front door of Bright Sparks Academy, location 14, Marietta, Georgia, a suburb 20 minutes northwest of Atlanta. The center is in a converted strip mall unit between a nail salon and a tax preparer. The exterior has been painted in the Bright Sparks palette, sky blue and sunflower yellow, the colors that the branding team selected because child development research shows that warm, high-contrast colors create a sense of safety and stimulation. The interior has been designed to the same specifications: low shelves, soft corners, reading nooks, a sensory wall, a block station, a dramatic play area with a miniature kitchen and plastic food, and the small aprons that children wear when they pretend to cook. Jody is wearing khakis, a Bright Sparks polo, the standard uniform that every staff member wears, purchased by the staff member, $12, deducted from the first paycheck, and white sneakers. Her hair is pulled back, her jewelry is gone, no rings, no watch, no earrings, because the toddler room policy prohibits dangling accessories for safety reasons. The name tag says, Miss Jody. She is listed in the staffing system as a floater aide, a part-time position that pays $13.50 an hour, and that exists to cover gaps in the schedule when a teacher calls out or a ratio needs to be met. The center director, a woman named Renata Villanueva, who is the only person in the building who knows, met her in the parking lot at 6:30. "You sure about this?" Renata asked. "I need to see it." "You'll see it. The question is whether you can handle it. The toddler room breaks people, not because the children are hard, the children are beautiful, because the system around the children is designed by people who don't change diapers." Renata hands her a walkie-talkie and a schedule. The schedule is a grid of 15-minute blocks that covers the entire day. Arrival, breakfast, diaper changes, morning circle, free play, outdoor time, lunch, nap, afternoon snack, activity, pickup. Every block has a ratio requirement. In Georgia, the toddler room ratio is 6 children per 1 adult. Location 14's toddler room has 12 children and 2 teachers. If one teacher takes a bathroom break, the ratio is 12-1. 12 toddlers, 1 adult, for the duration of a bathroom break. "How long are the bathroom breaks?" Jody asks. "As fast as you can," Renata says. "There's no scheduled break. There's no coverage for breaks. The teachers hold it. Some of them hold it all morning." Jody walks in. The toddler room smells like graham crackers and diaper cream and the particular sweetness of small humans who haven't yet learned to be anything other than what they are. 12 children between 18 months and 3 years old. Some are at the block station. Some are at the sensory table, a plastic tub filled with rice and scoops and the kind of small plastic animals that toddlers put in their mouths with the commitment of scientists conducting research. 2 are crying. Crying is the baseline sound of a toddler room, not distress crying, just the ambient expression of humans who experience every emotion at full volume because they haven't learned the adult skill of suppression. The lead teacher is at the rug. Her name tag says, Miss Tamika. She is 29 years old, tall, with braids pulled back, and the posture of a woman who's been on her feet since 6 a.m. and will be on her feet until 6 p.m., and whose body has adapted to the 12-hour shift the way a long-distance runner's body adapts to the road, not comfortably, but functionally, with the understanding that comfort is not available and function is mandatory. Tamika looks at Jody. She looks at the name tag. She looks at the floater aide uniform. "You the new float," she says. "First day." "Great. Diaper station is in the back. We're behind. 6 kids need changes and breakfast starts in 20 minutes and I can't leave the rug because the ratio goes sideways if I do. Can you handle changes?" "I can." "Good. Gloves are in the bin. Wipes are on the shelf. We're low, so use sparingly. Diapers are in the closet, but we're running out of size 4, so if a kid needs a 4 and we're out, use a 5 and fold the waist. The parents are supposed to bring their own, but half of them forget, and we can't send a kid home in a wet diaper, so we use ours and we don't bill, because billing for diapers makes parents feel like we're nickel and diming, and we'd rather eat the cost than lose the family. Eat the cost. The center eats the cost of diapers that parents forget. The center eats the cost of wipes that the supply budget doesn't cover. The center eats the cost of the $12 polo that the teacher bought with her own money. The center eats and eats, and the people who work in the center are the ones who are hungry. If this story has touched your heart, take a moment to share it and subscribe to Untold Hearts, because sometimes the person who feeds every child in the building is the one who hasn't eaten all day. The morning moves fast. Not office fast, toddler fast, which is a different velocity entirely. Office fast is meetings and emails and the controlled urgency of adults who can wait. Toddler fast is, a child needs a diaper now. A child is putting a crayon in his ear now. A child has bitten another child now. A child is crying because the block tower fell, and the fall of the block tower is, to a 2-year-old, a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions and requires the same level of emotional response. Jody changes diapers. She changes 12 diapers in 40 minutes. She learns the choreography. Gloves on, child on table, tabs open, wipe, clean, new diaper, tabs closed, gloves off, hand sanitizer, child down, next child up. The choreography is physical and intimate and requires the particular combination of efficiency and gentleness that defines early childhood work. You are touching someone's child, caring for someone's body, and you must be fast enough to maintain the schedule and gentle enough to maintain the trust. Between diapers, she watches Tamika. Tamika is running circle time, the 15-minute group activity where 12 toddlers sit on a rug and learn colors and shapes and songs and the early architecture of social interaction. Tamika is singing. Her voice is warm and full, and the children are watching her with the particular focus that toddlers give to adults who are genuinely present, not distracted, not checking a phone, not looking at a clock, but present, here, in the circle, on the rug, singing about the color red. While she sings, her hand is on the back of a child named Milo, who is sitting in her lap. Milo is 2. He arrived this morning without breakfast. His mother dropped him off at 6:45 in a rush. No lunch bag, no diaper bag. Just Milo, in pajama pants and a shirt that was on backward. Tamika didn't comment. She took Milo, turned his shirt around, found him pants from the emergency clothing bin, a bin that Tamika stocks herself with clothes she buys at Goodwill with her own money, because the center doesn't have a clothing budget, and children arrive without appropriate clothing more often than the corporate office knows. Milo is eating goldfish crackers from a cup that Tamika gave him from her own snack stash, a drawer in the classroom cabinet that she keeps filled with crackers, cereal bars, apple pouches, the emergency food supply of a teacher who has learned that the phrase "every child fed" requires a personal investment that the company does not reimburse. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, costs nothing, and tells us to keep making stories like this one. Back to the story. Day 2. Outdoor time. The licensing requirement in Georgia mandates that children in full-day programs receive a minimum of 60 minutes of outdoor play per day. Location 14's outdoor space is a fenced area on the side of the building, approximately 800 square feet, which sounds adequate until you put 12 toddlers in it and realize that 800 square feet divided by 12 children is 66 square feet per child, which is roughly the size of a bathtub, which is roughly the amount of space a toddler needs to fall down and get up and fall down again, which is the primary activity of toddlers outdoors. The playground equipment was installed when the center opened 4 years ago. It was ordered from the Bright Sparks approved vendor, a company that provides early childhood outdoor learning environments at a cost that the corporate facilities team negotiated down from $18,000 to $14,000 per installation. The equipment includes a small climbing structure, 2 bucket swings, a sandbox, and a ground-level balance beam. The climbing structure has a broken rung. Third step from the bottom. The rung cracked 6 months ago and was reported by Tamika through the maintenance portal. The same portal that the corporate facilities team monitors from Atlanta, the same portal that manages requests from 29 locations, the same portal that prioritizes by a rubric that Jody now understands is the same kind of rubric that every company uses and that every frontline worker Distrusts. A rubric designed by people who don't stand in the rooms where the broken things are. The broken rung was categorized as non-urgent cosmetic maintenance because the rung is still attached. It's cracked, not missing. The distinction between cracked and missing is meaningful to a facilities rubric. The distinction is not meaningful to a 2-year-old whose foot goes through the crack. Tamika has placed a piece of duct tape over the rung. The duct tape is bright orange, not because orange tape was available, but because Tamika bought it herself at the hardware store, choosing the most visible color so that every adult in the playground would see it and know, do not let a child step here. The duct tape is the kind of solution that frontline workers develop when institutional solutions fail. Temporary, visible, purchased with personal money, and more effective than the maintenance portal because the duct tape actually exists on the rung while the maintenance request exists in a queue. Jody sees the tape. She kneels next to the climbing structure and runs her finger along the crack. The crack is structural, not cosmetic. The rung will break fully within weeks, maybe days. A child's foot will go through it. The fall is 18 inches, not fatal, not even necessarily injurious. But the liability is real, and the injury is possible, and the maintenance request is 6 months old, and the rubric says non-urgent. How many things in this building are held together by duct tape? Jody asks. Tamika looks at her. The look is the look of a teacher who has been asked a question that she answers differently depending on who's asking. If a parent asks, the answer is, everything is safe and maintained. If a fellow teacher asks, the answer is honest. The rung, the cabinet door in the art corner, the hinge broke in September, the faucet in the kid bathroom, it drips, so I wrapped the handle with tape to remind the kids to turn it all the way off. The curtain rod, the bracket came out of the wall, and I taped it to the window frame. She pauses. 4 things that I can think of right now, in this room. There might be more in the infant room. 4 things. 4 broken things in one room, each reported through the maintenance portal, each categorized as non-urgent, each fixed by a woman who makes $14 an hour with duct tape she bought at the hardware store. Jody doesn't write this down. She doesn't need to. The duct tape is louder than any spreadsheet. Lunch, 11:30. The center serves lunch. It's included in the tuition, a mandate that Jody instituted when she founded Bright Sparks, a direct inheritance from B's philosophy that you cannot teach a hungry child. The kitchen prepares meals daily, a protein, a vegetable, a starch, a fruit, milk. Today, it's chicken nuggets, green beans, rice, and diced peaches. The portions are regulated, USDA guidelines, measured and documented, the particular bureaucracy of feeding small humans that requires paperwork and compliance, and the understanding that a 2-year-old's nutritional needs are simultaneously critical and impossible to enforce, because a 2-year-old will eat the peaches and throw the green beans on the floor with the joyful defiance of a creature who does not yet understand consequences. Tamika serves lunch. She moves between the small tables, 4 tables, 3 children each, 12 plates, 12 cups of milk, 12 small forks that the children use with varying degrees of accuracy. She cuts the chicken into smaller pieces for the youngest ones. She wipes faces. She picks up green beans from the floor. She encourages the reluctant eaters with the patient repetition that is the secret language of early childhood. Try 1 green bean, just 1. You can do it. Good job. 1 more? Milo doesn't have a plate. Jody notices this. She looks at the kitchen. The trays are empty. The portions were calculated for 12 children. 12 plates were made. 12 plates were served. But Milo wasn't on the meal roster. His enrollment is part-time, 3 days a week, and today is not one of his scheduled days. His mother dropped him off anyway. The center accepted him because the center always accepts him. Renata has an informal policy of never turning away a child whose parent needs care, even on off-scheduled days, because the alternative is a child who goes where? Home alone, to a neighbor who may or may not be available, into the gap between what a parent needs and what a system provides. But the meal plan doesn't flex. The kitchen made 12 meals for 12 enrolled children. Milo is the 13th child, and there is no 13th meal. Tamika doesn't hesitate. She picks up her own plate, the plate she brought from home, a container of leftover pasta, The lunch she packed at 5:30 this morning in the kitchen of the apartment she shares with her sister in Smyrna, the lunch that represents the only food she'll eat between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., because there is no break and no time and no coverage, and she sets it on the small table in front of Milo. "Here you go, baby," she says. "Miss Tamika's got you." Milo eats the pasta. He eats it with his hands because he's 2 and forks are theoretical. Tamika watches him eat. She doesn't eat. She doesn't make another plate. She stands at the table and watches a child eat her lunch, and she does not, by expression or gesture or word, indicate that this costs her anything. But it costs her. It costs her the 700 calories she won't consume between now and 6 p.m. It costs her the energy she'll run on, or run without, for the next 6.5 hours of diaper changes and circle times and outdoor supervision and nap monitoring and the constant, vigilant, physically demanding work of keeping 12 small humans alive and learning and safe. It costs her in the currency that early childhood teachers spend every day and that no paycheck reimburses, the calories and the time and the clothing and the supplies and the emotional labor of loving other people's children for $14 an hour. Jody stands at the back of the room. She watches Tamika give her lunch to Milo. She watches the way Tamika's hand rests on the back of Milo's chair while he eats, the hand of a woman who is hungry and who is making sure someone else isn't, the same hand that stocked the emergency clothing bin and the snack drawer, and that bought the Goodwill pants, and that does, every day, the 1,000 invisible things that hold this room together. Jody thinks about the motto on the wall: every child seen. Every child safe, every child fed, every child fed. Tamika is feeding every child. Tamika is feeding every child with her own lunch, because the system that promises to feed every child made exactly 12 plates for a room that has 13 children, and the gap between 12 and 13 is filled by a woman who makes $14 an hour and who will go hungry until 6 p.m. so that a 2-year-old can eat pasta with his hands. After lunch, outdoor time. The playground is a fenced rectangle behind the building, a small patch of mulch with a plastic climbing structure, a sandbox, 3 tricycles, and a patch of grass that is mostly dirt because 29 small feet have worn it to earth. The climbing structure has a loose bolt on the top railing that Tamika checks every morning by hand because the maintenance request was submitted in September and it is now January, and the bolt is still loose and the children still climb. Jody and Tamika take all 12 children outside. The ratio is maintained, 6-to-1, 2 adults, 12 children. But maintaining the ratio on a playground is different from maintaining it in a classroom. In a classroom, the space is contained. On a playground, the space is open, and toddlers move in every direction simultaneously with the trajectory patterns of molecules in a heated gas, unpredictable, energetic, and occasionally colliding. Tamika positions herself at the climbing structure. Jody takes the sandbox. Between them, they cover the sight lines. Every child visible, every child accounted for, the constant head count that is the background process of every early childhood professional's brain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Every 30 seconds. 12. A child named Elliot falls from the second step of the climbing structure. He falls approximately 18 inches onto mulch, and the fall is not dangerous. 18 inches onto mulch is the kind of fall that toddlers take 40 times a day, but the cry is immediate and full volume, and Tamika is there in 3 seconds, scooping Elliot up, checking his hands, checking his knees, doing the rapid triage that teachers do with the efficiency of emergency room nurses, because in the toddler room, every fall is a potential incident report, and every incident report is a potential parent call, and every parent call is a potential enrollment loss, and the enrollment is the revenue, and the revenue is the margin, and the margin is already tight. Elliot is fine, a scrape on his palm. Tamika carries him inside for a Band-Aid. This means Jody is alone on the playground with 11 toddlers. The ratio is now 11-to-1. The legal ratio in Georgia is 6-to-1. Jody is, for the duration of Tamika's absence, approximately 4 minutes, in violation of state licensing requirements. She is the CEO of the company that is in violation. She is the person who approved the staffing model that makes this violation inevitable every time one teacher needs to take a child inside for a Band-Aid or a diaper change or a sip of water or any of the 100 small necessities that toddlers produce throughout a day, and that require one of the two adults in the room to leave and the other to absorb the entire ratio. 4 minutes. Tamika returns. The ratio corrects. 12-2, 6-1. Legal. The violation lasted 4 minutes and nobody noticed because nobody was watching, and the violation happens every day, multiple times a day, at every center, in every toddler room, because the staffing model was designed with the assumption that both adults are always present and both adults are never always present, because the job requires things that require leaving the room. Jody adds this to the list she's keeping in her head, the list that started with the diaper shortage and the wipe rationing and the $12 polo and Tamika's lunch. The list is growing. The list is the distance between the 14th floor and the floor, the actual floor, the rug, the mulch, the linoleum where green beans land and where teachers kneel, and where the company's motto is either true or a decoration. If Untold Hearts has become part of your week, consider joining the channel membership. A few dollars a month keeps these stories coming. Links are in the description. Now, back to the story. Day 3. Nap time. Nap time in the toddler room is from 12:30 to 2:30. The children lie on cots, small vinyl cots that are stacked in a closet and pulled out each day, and that Jody now knows require a specific technique to unfold, because the hinges stick, and the legs sometimes collapse, and one of the 12 cots has a torn cover that was reported 3 months ago and has not been replaced because the supply request is in a queue. Jody lays out cots. She places the sleeping mats. She pulls the blackout curtains that Tamika bought and hung herself because the windows face south and the afternoon sun turns the room into a greenhouse, and the children can't sleep in a room that's 82 degrees, and the facility's request for UV blocking film was submitted in April, and it is now January. The children lie down. Some sleep immediately, the ones who are tired, the ones who didn't sleep well at home, the ones whose bodies surrender to the darkened room with the instant compliance of small creatures who haven't yet learned to fight rest. Some don't. Some lie on their cots and stare at the ceiling and whisper and kick the mat and need the constant patient redirection that nap time requires. A hand on the back, a whispered, "Close your eyes," the specific frequency of adult calm that tells a child's nervous system it is safe to stop. Tamika sits on the floor between the cots. She's rubbing the back of a child named Zara who doesn't nap, who lies on the cot every day for 2 hours and doesn't sleep, and who Tamika has learned needs touch rather than quiet, the pressure of a hand on her back rather than the instruction to close her eyes. Tamika rubs Zara's back and watches the room, and she is, in this moment, the most important person in 12 lives, and she is being paid $14 an hour, and she hasn't eaten since 5:30 this morning. "Can I ask you something?" Jody says. She's sitting on the floor too, between 2 cots monitoring the nappers. "Sure. Why do you stay?" Tamika looks at her. The look is not surprised. Floater aides ask this question all the time because floater aides see the pay and the hours and the diapers and the green beans on the floor, and they wonder why anyone with options would choose this. "Because Zara needs someone to rub her back," Tamika says. "Because Milo shows up without breakfast and somebody has to feed him. Because I had a Miss Tamika when I was little, a woman named Dorothy at the daycare on Memorial Drive who saw me when nobody else did, and who taught me my letters and made me lunch, and who is the reason I can read, and the reason I went to college, and the reason I'm sitting on this floor right now." She pauses. "I stay because the children are worth it. The children have always been worth it. The system isn't worth it. The pay isn't worth it. The $14 an hour isn't worth it. But the children," she looks at Zara, whose eyes are finally closing, whose body is finally relaxing under the pressure of Tamika's hand. "The children are everything." What would you change? Everything except the children, the pay, the ratios, the supply budget, the fact that I buy classroom materials with my own money, the fact that there's no break coverage. I haven't had a real lunch break in 2 years. The fact that corporate sends emails about curriculum enrichment and professional development while we're running out of size 4 diapers and buying wipes with our debit cards. The fact that the parents pay $2,200 a month and the teacher makes $29,000 a year and nobody at corporate sees the math as a problem. $2,200 a month per child? For the toddler room, 12 children, that's $26,400 a month in tuition for this room, $316,800 a year. I make $29,000. My aide, the position you're filling today, makes $28,000. The two of us generate over $300,000 in revenue and earn $57,000 combined. You want to know what's wrong with childcare? That math is what's wrong. Jody doesn't say anything. She knows the math. She built the math. She sat in a conference room in Midtown Atlanta and approved the wage scale and reviewed the tuition rates and signed the budget, and the math was correct. The margins were sustainable, the revenue was growing, the company was stable. The math was correct on the spreadsheet. The math is different on the floor. On the floor, the math is a woman who earns $29,000 a year feeding her lunch to a 2-year-old. Because the system she works in made 12 plates and had 13 mouths. Day 4, the parent, Thursday, 5:15 p.m. pickup time. Parents arrive in the specific wave pattern of suburban workdays. A trickle at 4:30, a surge at 5, the stragglers at 5:15 and 5:20, and the inevitable 5:35 parent who texts running late and who Tamika waits for without complaint, because complaining costs energy and energy is a resource she cannot afford to waste. A mother arrives at 5:12. Her name, according to the sign-out sheet, is Mrs. Kowalski. She picks up her daughter, a 3-year-old named Ava, who runs to her with the uncomplicated joy of a child who has not yet learned that reunions are ordinary. Mrs. Kowalski scoops Ava up. She looks at Tamika. "How was she today?" "Wonderful," Tamika says. She's really getting her colors. She identified yellow, blue, and green during circle time. All 3, no prompting, and she ate all her green beans at lunch. Mrs. Kowalski smiles. The smile is genuine. The smile of a parent receiving the daily report that tells her that the 8 hours her child spent away from her were good hours, safe hours, learning hours. The daily report is a transaction that happens 1,000,000 times a day across every daycare in America. The teacher smiles, the parent smiles, the information transfers, the child goes home. What doesn't transfer is, Tamika has been standing for 11 hours. Tamika gave her lunch to Milo on Monday and has been packing double portions since Tuesday to prepare for the possibility of another child without food. Tamika's feet are aching in the way that feet ache when they've been on linoleum for 11 hours, in sneakers that cost $40, and that she's been wearing for 8 months because new sneakers cost $40, and $40 is 3 hours of pre-tax wages. What doesn't transfer is, the climbing structure has a cracked rung held together with orange duct tape. The faucet drips. The curtain rod is taped to the window frame. The supply closet is low on size 4 diapers. The emergency clothing bin needs restocking. The classroom has 12 children and 12 plates and sometimes 13 mouths. Mrs. Kowalski doesn't know these things. Mrs. Kowalski pays $2,200 a month and receives, in return, a teacher who smiles at pickup and says, "Wonderful," and reports the green beans and the colors and the uncomplicated joy of reunion. The $2,200 buys the smile in the report and the safety in the learning. It does not buy the teacher a lunch break. It does not fix the rung. It does not stock the closet. The gap between what the parent pays and what the teacher receives is the gap that Jody has been standing in all week, and the gap is wide enough to hold a broom and a Tupperware container of pasta and 4 pieces of duct tape and the quiet, constant sacrifice of a woman who makes $29,000 a year doing the most important work in the building. "Thank you," Mrs. Kowalski says. "We couldn't do it without you." "That's what we're here for," Tamika says. The smile stays, the feet ache, the gap stays. Day 5, the reveal, Friday, 6 p.m. Pickup is technically at 5:30. 2 parents are late. They're always late. Traffic, work. The thousand reasonable excuses that parents have for the lateness that requires a teacher to stay past her shift and that the teacher is not paid overtime for because the teacher is salaried, which means the salary covers whatever hours the job requires, and the job requires the hours that the parents require. And the parents require 6:15 because the highway was backed up. Jody stays, Tamika stays. They sit on the rug with the two remaining children and build a block tower and wait for the parents who are late and who will arrive apologetically and gratefully and who will not know that the two women sitting on the rug with their children have been here since 6 a.m. and have not eaten a full meal and are being paid a salary that breaks down to approximately $11.60 an hour when you factor in the unpaid overtime that nobody tracks. The last parent picks up at 6:18. Tamika waves goodbye to the child, a girl named Lena, with the brightness that teachers maintain at pickup, the professional cheerfulness that says your child had a wonderful day regardless of how the teacher's day actually was. The door closes. The room is empty. The cots are stacked. The tables are wiped. The blocks are in the bin. The goldfish crackers are in the drawer. The floor has graham cracker crumbs that Tamika is sweeping with a broom that she is pushing with the specific exhaustion of a woman who has been on her feet for 12 hours and who still has a 25-minute drive to Smyrna and a sister who is waiting and a bed that she will collapse into and an alarm that will go off at 5 a.m. tomorrow for a Saturday planning session that she is not paid for but that she does anyway because the curriculum doesn't write itself and Monday's circle time needs new songs. Tamika, Jody says. Yeah? My name isn't Jody. I mean, it is, but I'm not a floater aide. Tamika stops sweeping. She holds the broom. My name is Jody Emerson Park. I'm the CEO of Bright Sparks. The room is quiet. Not the quiet of nap time. The quiet of a woman holding a broom, looking at a woman she's worked beside for 5 days, and realizing that the floater aide who changed diapers and served lunch and sat on the floor during nap time and watched her give her pasta to a 2-year-old is the person whose name is on the building. Tamika's face moves. It moves the way weather moves, from surprise to confusion to recognition, to something that isn't anger, but is adjacent to anger, the way a highway exit is adjacent to a highway, close enough to see, different enough to be its own thing. The thing is, exhaustion. Tamika is too tired to be angry. She's too tired to be surprised. She's been doing this job for 6 years, and the job has refined her emotional range to the essential frequencies: care, patience, resilience, and the specific numbness that develops when a person loves their work and is broken by their workplace. She sets the broom against the wall. She folds her arms. She looks at Jody the way she looks at a child who has done something wrong and knows it, not with anger, but with the patient firmness of a teacher who has learned that accountability begins with eye contact. You were here for 5 days, Tamika says. You changed diapers. You sat on the rug. You watched me give my lunch to Milo. I did. You watched me put duct tape on a climbing structure because nobody fixed the rung. I did. You watched me sweep this floor at 6:15 after 12 hours with no lunch break and shoes I've been wearing for 8 months. I did. And I should have seen it before. I should have seen all of it before. I built this company to be the place my mother would have built if she'd had the resources. And instead I built a place where the woman who does what my mother did, feeds children, teaches children, holds children, can't afford to eat lunch. Tamika's arms unfold. Not because the anger is gone. The anger isn't gone. The anger has been building for 6 years, accruing interest like a loan that nobody's paying off. The arms unfold because the woman standing in front of her just said the thing that no one at corporate has ever said. I should have seen it. Not, I understand. Not, I hear you. Not the corporate vocabulary of empathy that sounds like empathy and feels like a press release. I should have seen it. The acknowledgement that the failure is personal, that the CEO who wrote the motto failed the teacher who lives the motto, that the spreadsheet is not the building, and the building is not the rug, and the rug is where the work happens, and nobody from the 14th floor in Midtown Atlanta has ever sat on it. You watched me give my lunch to Milo, Tamika says. I did. And you didn't say anything. I wanted to see what happens when the CEO isn't watching. What happens is that a teacher gives her lunch to a child because the system doesn't have enough plates and nobody has fixed it. Nobody has fixed a lot of things. I know. I'm going to fix them. Not eventually. Now. Jody sits on the rug. She doesn't stand. She sits on the same rug where she sat during circle time and nap time and the long afternoon hours of block towers and green beans and the ambient crying of 12 toddlers who experience everything at full volume. She sits because the conversation she's about to have shouldn't happen from above. It should happen from the floor. Tell me everything, she says. Every broken thing, every unfunded need, every policy that makes your job harder. Tell me like I'm the person who can fix it, because I am. Tamika sits across from her. She still has the broom. She leans it against the wall. She talks for 45 minutes. She talks about the pay, $14 an hour, which is $29,000 a year before taxes, which is $23,000 after taxes, which is $1,900 a month, which is rent in Smyrna, $1,050, car payment, $280, car insurance, $140, phone, $65, groceries, $200, gas, $120, the $12 polo she had to buy for the uniform, the $40 sneakers she can't replace, and the $45 left over that is supposed to cover everything else, the dentist, the oil change, the birthday present for her sister's kid, the Goodwill runs for the emergency clothing bin, the hardware store for the duct tape. She talks about the ratios, how 12 to 2 sounds manageable until you subtract a bathroom break, and it's 12 to 1, subtract a diaper emergency, and it's 12 to 1, subtract a parent meeting, and it's 12 to 1, and 12 to 1 with toddlers is not supervision, it's triage. She talks about the parents, how she loves the parents, how the parents are grateful, how Mrs. Kowalski says, "We couldn't do it without you," and means it, how the gratitude is real, and the gap between the gratitude and the pay is also real, and how a person cannot pay rent with gratitude. She talks about Dorothy, the woman on Memorial Drive, the Miss Tamika before Tamika, the woman who taught her letters and made her lunch and saw her when nobody else did. Dorothy made $9 an hour in 2003. Tamika makes $14 in 2025. Adjusted for inflation, Tamika makes less than Dorothy did 22 years ago. The profession has not advanced. The profession has retreated. The children are worth more, and the teachers are paid less, and the gap is filled by women like Tamika who stay because the children need them and who leave, eventually, statistically, 47% of them every year, because the children's needs cannot sustain a life that the paycheck doesn't support. Jody listens. She sits on the rug, and she listens the way she should have been listening for the last 15 years. Not from the 14th floor, not from a survey, not from an exit interview summary, but from the floor, from the rug, from 3 feet away from a woman who is telling her the truth, because the truth has been waiting to be told, and the person who needed to hear it finally sat down. The board meeting is the following Tuesday. Jody walks in carrying a broom, not a metaphorical broom, Tamika's actual broom, the one from location 14, the one with the worn bristles and the cracked handle that should have been replaced 6 months ago, but wasn't because the supply budget was cut in Q3, and brooms weren't categorized as essential classroom materials. She puts the broom on the conference table. "This broom costs $4, she says. The woman who uses it earns $14 an hour. She feeds children with her own lunch. She stocks the classroom with her own money. She hasn't had a lunch break in 2 years. She is the reason our motto works and our company is failing her." She tells them the math, Tamika's math. $316,800 in annual tuition revenue from one toddler room. $57,000 in combined salary for the 2 people who generate that revenue. The ratio is 5.6 to 1. For every dollar the teachers earn, the room generates $560 in revenue. The teachers are not the expense. The teachers are the product. Parents are not paying for a building or a brand or a brochure. Parents are paying for Tamika. Parents are paying for the woman who sings on the rug and rubs Zara's back and turns Milo's shirt around and gives her pasta to a hungry child. That woman is the entire value proposition of Bright Sparks, and the company is paying her $29,000 a year. We say, every child fed, on every wall in every center, Jody says. The teacher who feeds every child goes hungry to do it. We say, every child safe. The climbing structure has a cracked rung held together with orange duct tape because the maintenance request has been in a queue for 6 months. We say, every child seen. The person who sees them, who really sees them, who knows that Milo needs his shirt turned around and Zara needs her back rubbed and Lena needs extra time at pickup, that person can't afford new shoes. She puts down the broom. I sat on the floor of a toddler room for 5 days. I changed diapers. I served lunch, or didn't because there weren't enough plates. I stayed until 6:18 on a Friday waiting for a late parent with a teacher who hadn't eaten since 5:30 a.m. I saw what our company looks like from the floor, and from the floor our company looks like a place that asks the people who care most to sacrifice the most and compensates them the least. The list: teacher wages $14 to $19, aides $13.50 to $17, across 29 locations. The cost is $2.8 million annually. The revenue is $190 million. The raise is 1.47% of revenue. Mealflex policy: every center prepares 2 extra meals per room per day. No child who shows up is ever unfed. The cost is $87,000 a year. The corporate retreat last fall cost $91,000. Supply budget restored and doubled. Teachers do not buy classroom materials with their own money. Teachers do not buy emergency clothing with their own money. Teachers do not stock snack drawers with their own money. If a child needs it, the company provides it. Break coverage: every center hires 1 dedicated float aide per shift whose sole job is covering breaks and ratios. Teachers get a 30-minute lunch break every day, not a theoretical break that exists in the handbook, an actual break, covered by an actual person, enforced by an actual policy. Maintenance overhaul: every open request at every center is resolved within 14 days, no exceptions, no rubric. If a teacher reports a broken rung, the rung is fixed, not categorized, not queued, fixed. The facilities team gets a new mandate: if a teacher has to use duct tape, the system has already failed. And the ratio review: every center is staffed to 1 below maximum, meaning if the ratio allows 6 children per adult, the center staffs at 5 to 1. The buffer is not optional. The buffer is the difference between a room that functions and a room that survives. A board member, the one who manages the endowment portfolio and who speaks in percentages, asks about the margin impact. Jody looks at him. "The margin impact is that Tamika eats lunch," she says. "The margin impact is that a 2-year-old doesn't eat his teacher's pasta because the system he depends on couldn't make a 13th plate. The margin impact is that we become the company we say we are on the wall. If the margin can't absorb that, the margin is wrong. The board approves it, unanimously, not because the math is comfortable, because the broom is on the table and the broom is $4. And the woman who uses it is the reason the company exists." She picks up the broom. "I'm going to keep this in my office," she says, "next to the spreadsheets and the revenue reports and the growth projections. Because this broom represents the distance between what we say on the wall and what happens on the floor. And every decision this board makes from today forward, I'm going to measure against this broom. Does this decision make the job of the person holding this broom easier or harder? If the answer is harder, the decision doesn't pass." 1 month later. Location 14. The extra meals are being prepared, 14 plates instead of 12. 2 extra every day in every room at every center. Milo eats lunch from the kitchen now. A plate with his name on it, chicken nuggets and green beans and peaches, the same plate as every other child. Because every child fed means every child, including the 13th one who shows up on an off day because his mother needs help. And the center is the help. Tamika eats lunch now. An actual lunch, at an actual table, during an actual 30-minute break that is covered by the new float aide, a woman named Celine who started 2 weeks ago at $17 an hour, and who has already learned the diaper choreography and the nap routine and the specific art of rubbing Zara's back in the way that helps her sleep. The supply closet is full. Diapers, sizes 3 through 6, wipes, cases of them, not the rationed single packs that Tamika was counting. Emergency clothing, a bin stocked by the company, not by a teacher's goodwill trips. Art supplies, sensory materials, circle time props, the things that a classroom needs to function, the things that teachers were buying themselves. Tamika's paycheck changed. $29,000 became $39,500. The raise is not life-changing in the way that a lottery is life-changing. It is life-changing in the way that breathing room is life-changing. The difference between checking the bank account with dread and checking it with the modest relief of a person who can pay rent and buy groceries and not choose between the two. Jody comes to location 14 every month, not as a CEO, as a float aide. She puts on the polo, she clips the name tag, she changes diapers, she serves lunch. She sits on the rug and sings about the color red and watches Tamika teach 12 toddlers how to be people, which is the most important work in the world and which is finally, at $19 an hour with a 30-minute lunch break and a stocked supply closet, being paid like it might be. The broom is in Jody's office. Next to it, taped to the wall, is a drawing that Milo made on his first day eating lunch from the kitchen instead of from Tamika's plate. It's a circle with 2 eyes and a smile, and something that might be hair or might be a hat or might be the sun. Below it, in Tamika's handwriting, he drew you. He says it's Miss Jody. He says Miss Jody sits on the floor. She does. Every month, on the same rug, on the same floor, in the same room where a teacher gave her lunch to a child and nobody at corporate knew. They know now. Thank you for watching this story. If it reminded you that the people who teach our youngest children deserve to eat lunch at work, share it. Subscribe to Untold Hearts for more stories about the distance between what we promise our children and what we pay the people who keep that promise. Tell us in the comments, who was your Miss Tamika?